Hey, everybody, this is Bob Cargill from Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. This is episode 149 of my podcast. I'm so excited. I am especially excited because of the special guest I'm going to introduce you to in just a minute. But I'm excited also that I'm almost up to 150 episodes. Can't believe that, of this podcast. Hey, it was a dream of mine. I made it happen. And that's all thanks to all the guests I've interviewed and all of you who listen and watch. I appreciate it very, very much. So today is Friday, February 4, 2022, but you probably won't be listening to this or watching it on YouTube or somewhere on social media till the week of February 7. That would be my guess. But today, Friday, February 4th, from my home office here outside of Boston, Sudbury, Massachusetts, there is snow on the ground. We got about a foot of snow last weekend, and today is just a really messy slush pile out there, ice, sleet, a little rain, a little snow. It's a really cold day, and I say all that without having even ventured outside. So that's just me looking outside. I'm lucky to be working from my home office today, not having to venture into Boston to teach or go meet with any clients. I am working from home today and so happy to be able to introduce you to today's very special guest. His name is Patrick Timmons. And Patrick, I met through a mutual friend of mine, and she said, you got to meet Pat. And I reached out to Pat, and we have now been following each other on Twitter. But today's the first time we've talked face to face, and it still isn't even in person, but thanks to Zoom, we are able to see each other and talk synchronously. Pat is the author of a book called Feel Something: How to Embrace Empathy to Build Trust with Your Audience. Pat, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's so good to see you. And I thank you so much to take time out of your busy schedule to be with me today. Let me introduce you formally, and then we'll learn a lot more about you. I have so many questions, and I know we're going to have a great conversation. Let me tell you folks a little bit more about Pat, besides the fact that he's an author, and I applaud him, and kudos and props for that. And Pat is a social media brand marketer with a background working in music, advertising, SaaS, SaaS, and he's currently on the social media team at Webflow. He graduated from Emerson with a BS in marketing communications and entrepreneurial studies, and graduated from Berklee College of Music with an MA in music business. And yes, he wrote that book last year, and it's all about empathy in marketing. And I read the book. I think you can see it back here on my Kindle. I was one of your first readers, I'm sure, Pat. It's an awesome book. It really is. Feel Something: How to Embrace Empathy to Build Trust with Your Audience. Again, Pat, welcome. Thanks for being here, and say hello to everybody. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And I'm also cold here with a lot of slush, and I haven't been outside, so I can tell, and I can tell just by looking at it, it's cold. I'm doing great. I am happy it's Friday, having had a good week and a little productive week. My background, like you said, got my bachelor's at Emerson in marketing and entrepreneurship, and got my master's in music business. And from Emerson, I had kind of a start in public relations for a little bit. Didn't really love PR as much as I love the other kind of ideas of marketing. So I went into advertising at a place called Hill Holiday in Boston. Really loved the energy of advertising, and worked in account management. I worked in integrated production for a little bit. And then from there, I actually started doing kind of some tech work with Emerson, and helped build their mobile app for students, faculty, and everybody at the college. And then also did some like user research and user marketing for the app. So that was kind of a good time to just kind of focus on school only and not have another internship. From there, I kind of went into the music industry and worked at the Recording Academy in Los Angeles for a little bit, and helped kind of work on some quality assurance testing for the Grammys and workflow stuff for that. And from there, I wanted to step away from music for a little bit after working some festivals. and found a lot of interest in tech and wanted to focus on opportunities there. So I worked at Drift for a little bit, for about almost 2 years there on their social and video team. And then now I'm at Webflow, helping the social team, connect with our audience. So it's been a ride. I've been kind of all around the marketing world. But yeah.
Pat, it's so impressive. I mean, yeah, it's been a quick ride. You have packed a lot in a short amount of time. And it's funny, you said you worked at a place right off the bat, a place called Hill Holiday, like one of the biggest, well-known, iconic ad agencies in the world. Good for you. What a first job. And you've had some really amazing experience early in your career. So clearly you've learned a lot already. What have been some of your, and you've accomplished a lot already, what have been some of your biggest learnings in your career thus far? And also highlights, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest learning is, always have a human first approach with work. I think sometimes, that sounds obvious, but like when you're working with people that don't have a human first approach to work, you really realize the difference of focusing on it every single day versus not. So I think that was like kind of the biggest learning throughout my entire career. And I'm so happy that I'm on a team that everybody is human first and everybody's thinking that way. And, really does make a difference when you find that kind of team that really can support you as a person. Everybody works better as a marketer when they're feeling supported and able to create. Actually, I feel like the highlight of my career has been at Webflow. I think recently this year, I've been just having so much fun with the people who love Webflow and love using Webflow every day and designing. Our community is like so active and so like engaged in our product. There's people that are literally changing their lives with our product because they're starting, design agencies for companies where they help big brands, small brands with their web development with Webflow, and they're, creating agencies across the world. And there's freelancers across the world that are, making impact with Webflow, and it's really amazing to like, be along with those stories and, support them with our socials.
It's awesome to hear you're so happy there, and it sounds like a great company. And I'm going to have to personally look into Webflow more now that I know so many good things about the company and the fact that you work there. Can you, seeing we're speaking about Webflow, can you dig even deeper with regard to what you do there, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I'm on the social team. Yeah, I'm a social media coordinator on the team, and there's two of us, me, the social media coordinator, and then my boss is the head of social. So we run pretty much every channel that you see on social, from TikTok to Twitter to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. And we run them very collaboratively. So it's, almost kind of like a writer's room feel every single day. We're kind of figuring out what's happening in the world, what's happening in our designers world and the Webflow world. And we're kind of going back and forth and figuring out what content will resonate you the most. And today I put out a tweet that is like, really resonating with a lot of people. And it's just because we have those conversations of like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And like, we have a very collaborative and, exciting thing going on. So
thanks to this conversation, if I'm not already following Webflow on Twitter, they will have an additional follower after this podcast. Yeah. I have to look at how you are all doing your social. I've done a lot of that in my day. Yeah. It was about 5 years ago or so. I think it was the spring of 17. I left my last full-time corporate gig, if you will, and I was a director of social media at an agency. And it sounds like that experience that I had is similar to what you're doing right now. We were, very demanding job because you have to be on your toes and you're, listening to, what the chatter is online as well as what's in the news, the news cycle, and you have to be empathetic, that word,
Yeah,
with regard to your
definitely.
audience and have those conversations with them on social if necessary. So I love social media, and I'm glad to hear that that's what you're doing, and you're so happy that we have that in common. Absolutely. If you don't mind, the human first comment, I applaud you for that, and I'll give you a thought I have, and I'm curious how you would react to it. I've been in business in the industry a long, long time, and always felt up until, say, the last 5 or 10 years that business could be cold and kind of rough from time to time, and maybe that, I think it is starting to change. Is that related to what you mean when you say human first? Because I always felt, it was always, and that this is the definition of business, obviously making money and turning a profit and working hard and being successful. But I think there's a trend in the last, again, 5, 10 years where the personal side of business is getting more attention. Am I right? And I might not be articulating it. I'm sure I'm not articulating it as well as you could.
No, you did great. I think that's perfectly what I was thinking. I think when people start thinking of, I think obviously making money is super important. That's why business exists. So it's not negating that. It's more combining that with, how can we be meaningful and, intentional while we're also, making revenue, so we can be even more meaningful and more intentional with this revenue that we're earning. Again, with Webflow, our dual mission is to enable everybody to build for the web and lead impactful lives while we do it. So it's not just about our mission to the world. It's also a promise to the employees, and putting us first and putting the customers first at the same time. Like the whole company is about leading fulfilling lives. So I think that is just like a perfect example of putting human first while also trying to, build your business and make money.
Yeah, it's also, so I teach marketing now. I left the full-time corporate world and making my living mostly. I do some consulting and writing and have some clients, but a lot of what I do now is the teaching. And I do tell students that, because we're teaching it in course and in our classes, in the courses I teach, what you just said, purpose-driven business, a purposeful, meaningful business. And the irony is that it's obviously good for us employees and the individuals, personally, but it also is good business because it's a win-win, because customers and consumers are starting to demand that. It's becoming a standard, both as a business and brand and as a customer and client that is expected. Am I right? It's good for business.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. If you have employees that are happy, you're going to have better work, then you're going to have more customers interested in your product. I think it is like a flywheel effect.
No, I think it's great. I love the direction I have seen businesses taking nowadays. And I am enjoying work more and more. I always was passionate about marketing. Am grateful for all the opportunities I was given by my respective former employers and bosses, and the colleagues I worked with were tremendous. But I feel we've evolved to the point where we're getting better and better out there, and that's a good thing. I want to ask you, before talking about the book, because I want to ask a lot of questions about the book and give you the opportunity to talk about the book. But when I introduced you, and again, I admitted we hadn't met before, we never talked that I know of.
Yeah, not yet. No.
Yeah, until today. I mean, we talked on Twitter, maybe, DMs, that kind of thing. But I didn't know music was such a big part of your past. And so introducing you, I'm mentioning Berklee College of Music, and I'm saying, wait a minute, he has talent beyond, marketing and writing. And if you don't mind, and I see a guitar or two in the background, tell us about, if you don't mind, sharing some of your background in music. Are you still doing music yourself now?
Yeah, so I was actually the kind of passion for it. So I was always interested in music. I was always in like chorus in high school or an a cappella group in high school, and I was an a cappella group in college as well. But I also like learned how to play music, piano, not really guitar as much, but piano, and really practice like voice. So music has always been kind of something that I always turn to. Like I'm always playing, music on Spotify while I'm working. When I was little, I was also always listening to pretty much any type of music you could think of, from like Elton John to like Green Day to Britney Spears, like whatever was out there. So I always listened to like any type of music. And yeah, I have a lot of friends that are like, musicians themselves. So I kind of get to work with, my experience and knowledge from like music business and marketing to help them with whatever they want to accomplish as an artist. So that's been kind of the way it's been playing a role in my daily life now. And, whether it's like a quick FaceTime just to talk about what their next release looks like or things like that. So it's been, pretty casual, but it's been cool to learn all of that stuff from Berklee. And, it was almost like an MBA, but like for music. So it's still like a lot of the things I learned, I can still apply
Yes.
to like Webflow and my past roles. So I definitely, really am grateful for what I've learned there.
Yeah, no, you got a great background between the professional and the educational, Pat. And it's very few people who have written a book at a young, relatively speaking, age, and early, relatively speaking, in their career. I mean, so many people dream of writing a book. I think, I'm almost finished with mine that I dreamed
Yeah.
of for about 800 years, and it's finally coming to fruition. But look at you.
Yeah.
You have one published. You beat me to it by many, many years, and most everybody else. Congratulations. I hope you know what a big accomplishment that is. I do have a few questions I think lined up. What was the impetus for writing the book? Did you dream of it forever like I have? If you did, you didn't wait too long to make the dream come true. How did it all come about?
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. It was during the height of the pandemic, so there was no vaccine. There was no like very clear understanding of what was going on, and no one was going anywhere. Everybody's home. And I was like, well, if I'm not going anywhere, I'm not traveling. Like a big passion of mine is traveling and just going places and seeing new things. So I wasn't doing that for a while. And I was like, I'm kind of bored, so I want to find a challenge. And I was looking for whether it was going to be like painting or, like doing like culinary arts online for fun or something like that. But then I came across a LinkedIn post that was like, do you want to write a book? My team can like help you learn how to. And it was from a professor at Georgetown University named Eric Kester, who runs the Creator Institute, which was the program I went through to get published. And I was hesitant at first. I was like, obviously, it was like a daunting task to write a book. But this is kind of like getting into like the process, but it was really cool because they really broke down what it would take to write it. And they really made it clear, that if you don't want to actually publish it, you don't have to, but it's worth just kind of going along the process and trying. And the first part of the process was having conversations like this, just talking to people about marketing and whatever the subject it was, empathy at the time, like as it is now. But it also was like about personality traits at the beginning. It was about, really different ideas that I had, like exploring marketing in different lenses. And after having all those conversations, there was a clear kind of consensus and through line about empathy and, emotion-based marketing. So, yeah.
Yeah, big deal. Pat, and you talk very, you're very humble, and I applaud you for that. Me, I'd be like, shouting from the rooftops. You'll hear me in a few months. I published a book.
Yeah.
But I did see you promote it a little bit. And
I did.
Yeah. And how was that all? So you wrote the thing, and then what? I mean, how hard was it getting the word out and getting, people like me to read it, et cetera?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because the holidays coming back. One of the big things was always be humble and hungry and human, and like that was like their mantra. Um, and I've actually like really loved that mantra or focus, and I brought that with me forever. So promoting myself heavily was like never one of my biggest things because we always, check our ego at the door, and I definitely didn't want it to come off as like I wrote a book. I wanted it more to be like empathy is something that we should all be focusing on and thinking of. Here's a book that like is allowing that to happen and like allowing us to have intention towards empathy and being an emotion-based marketer. So that was like the way I was trying to promote it. But when I had to get it published, I had to do like some fundraising and raise, close to like $8,000 to get it published. So you had to flex those muscles and really bring the marketing there. So that was like a really fun kind of creative project. And I collaborated with a lot of really cool brands that I'm just like friends with their founders or people on their team. Like House of Wise is a CBD gummy brand. With You is like a healthcare brand started by Annie. And I kind of worked with all those brands to like create like a giveaway that would build excitement for it. I used a cameo of like some of my favorite drag queens to get the book out there. Anything that was just like out of the norm that would make people stop scrolling for a second. Um, and I did do that for heavily for like a month. And it worked because I was able to achieve more than my goal. And, I donated the proceeds to the crisis that was happening in India and then
Mm,
also the Franklin Food Pantry. So, stuff like that. But yeah,
good for you, Pat.
yeah,
And the response I know from what I've seen, and I can tell you my response. Everything I've seen and everything I have felt has been enthusiastically positive. I know that without having to ask you. But specifically, can you share, what people have said about the book? How has what has what's been most gratifying about any feedback you've received to the book?
yeah. It's pretty exciting. I spoke at a conference with a company called Amplify, and just talked about empathy and marketing in kind of a Q&A chat. And the people were really excited about, their team was really excited about like hearing that. And they actually wanted to read the book all together. So they bought like, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 copies of the book. And they have a team around the world. So they sent them all the copy of my book. So they all like were sharing it with me when they got it. And so they were really excited. And a lot of the team was really interested in just kind of the topic and were really excited about it, that they wanted me to come in and talk with them actually later this month just to have a Q&A session after reading the book. That was like really unexpected. And, obviously as like a marketing author, like you kind of want marketing teams or schools or classes to pick up the book and, talk about the topic, but I actually didn't realize it was going to happen so soon. I was like kind of waiting to like kind of approach like next fall with that approach, and start like really in the summer getting the book out there for students or for teams. But yeah, it was really exciting to like have that kind of excitement so soon.
No, that must feel great and good for
Yeah,
you. And that's a smart company that bought 30 or so copies of the book, because it's more than worth it. So empathy, as a lifelong marketer, I've always believed in empathy for business reasons, but I'm also I think I'd like to believe that kind of person. And maybe it ties back to my earlier comment. I didn't used to see as much of that in business or in our personal lives
right.
as I would have liked. Can you explain for those who aren't as accustomed to talking about empathy, or even frankly knowing the definition, what is empathy and how can it benefit us both professionally and personally?
Yeah. So empathy is kind of there's confusion about it, and I kind of address this in the book a little bit. But there's a difference between practicing empathy and being an empath. An empath is like something that people are kind of controversial about and back and forth on, where it's like you can actually feel what someone else is feeling in the room. Like you can, like if someone's like sad, you actually get sad too. But what I'm talking about is practicing empathy. And, what I mean by that is you're listening to what people are saying, not just comprehending, but you're actually taking the time to understand like what they're feeling and how it would feel to be in their shoes almost. And you're then actioning on it to make your marketing or your business or your meetings, whatever context it is, just much more, compassionate and focused on just making people feel heard, essentially. And that's really what it is all about.
Do companies in 2022 naturally have empathy, or is it something that has to be brought to their attention? How does a company embed that quality, that principle, that attribute into their corporate culture?
I think a lot of companies, like you said earlier, are moving in that direction, which is exciting. I think there's companies that are, so old fashioned too, that are just not, and never will, like they're not going to focus on that. And, I think like a lot of it is thinking about, how you can influence culture, how much like marketers influence culture, and how much brands influence culture. So like the brands that are doing that and are having a much stronger impact on culture, on social, on Twitter, on TikTok, those brands are really focusing on empathy, and, I think like some brands we think about are like, Nike, Chewy, like as a smaller brand, even B2B brands. Like I know like Gong is a very good one that's very focused on empathy. So like, I think a lot of brands that have that impact on larger communities are really focusing on that.
So that's great to hear, and it's very encouraging, and it's consistent with from a distance I've observed on social media. How specifically would a company show empathy towards its customers, and how might it benefit the bottom line?
Yeah. I think like a good example is like today I put out a tweet for Webflow, and it was just kind of like about how it was kind of like talking about the idea of, taking on more projects when you haven't even finished other projects, and then your portfolio either in understanding like what it actually feels like to be a designer in that position. And, that got so much engagement because people are like, oh, I understand that feeling. Like, and like people were even saying like, why are you like reading me so much? Why are you like, why are you criticizing me? Like they're being, funny, but like it just like resonated perfectly with them because, also it's also like that time of year, it's also about like timing. It's the beginning of the new year. People are like excited about new things, new projects. So like talking about that kind of concept at this time made sense. It was not only like something that a lot of designers feel often, but also like are feeling right now,
So that's great to hear. And by your audience responding to, say, you're the company, and in this case, you're representing the company on social, and again, this is hypothetical, and I just curious how you would answer this question, how, so that we can walk our audience through how it works.
Mm-hmm.
What would the next step be if you have someone following you and you're putting out tweets that they're relating to and really enjoying reading and responding to? Why and how might that lead to potential business?
So a lot of our community is already using Webflow, or a lot of like your community who follows you is already somewhat excited about your brand. So what happens when you build even more excitement and more trust, you kind of build that brand affinity with them. So what they're going to do is say, did you see that tweet from Webflow or from Skittles or from McDonald's, like that really like made me laugh or really resonated. And then they might share it with someone that's not using your product or buying your product already with word of mouth. And like, as many marketers know, word of mouth is just like our gold. It's like the best thing ever. And that brand affinity is what kind of leads into that word of mouth.
I totally agree. I mean, that answer, Pat, is a case study right there. I mean, I told you before I turned on record that I might clip some highlights. That could be one of the highlights.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, thank you.
No, and it's also, so I said, as I was asking that question, I kind of know what I would say. I kind of anticipate what you would say, but not everybody knows that. Do you know what I mean? And that's an education for the brands and businesses that some of them aren't even on social yet, never mind, using it regularly, and realizing that it's important to have those conversations. It's important to be listening to your audience. And the more engagement there is, the more they can relate to you as human beings. Chances are, the more likely they'll do business with you if the products and services you have are meet their expectations, meet their needs, wants, and demands. So a great answer to that question. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey,
of course.
many more questions, but we don't have infinite amount of time. So maybe 5 or 10 more minutes of questions if you have that much time.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
then we'll wind things down. Who do you? So I'm learning a ton about what you do at Webflow, and I'm gonna look up Webflow right after this episode is done recording. But I know you personally on Twitter, and I see a lot of your activity. But I don't look at who you follow on, and that's a question I have for you. Who do you follow for inspiration, education? Anyone you want to give a shout out to? That's an open question for you to take in which direction you want.
Yeah, there's so many amazing people to follow in marketing and everything on Twitter, but someone that I've met personally in person after talking with her so many times on Twitter, she's also in the Massachusetts area, is Nicole Tabak. She's just so great at just supporting everybody in the community. She is just so authentic, and she's just like so herself on social. And she's shared her story of kind of going into like the freelance marketing route rather than working in a company full time. And she's been very awesome about talking about mental health in the marketing space, and she has a really awesome newsletter that goes out every week about mental health and marketing, and how you need to she calls it the social media detox, where you need to like take time to just focus on yourself, and it will make you a better marketer to like have that moment. So I think she's really inspired me a ton as like a marketer and as just like a person on social, that you don't have to be posting like marketing insights all the time. You can post about like what you're feeling that day and how others might be feeling about it. And usually when she shares things that are so authentic, they always explode because other people are feeling the same way. So yeah.
Great shout out to and for Nicole. I have absolutely seen her and believe I follow her on Twitter, maybe because of you, because we know how algorithms work too. If we follow one person, usually the people they're talking to show up at the top of our feeds, and that's the community that, in that case, I really like that the algorithm works that way, because if we're following the right people, more of those right people end up surfacing. And then we have one big mutual support group, which is what we all need. And I notice you do a lot of that in terms of, so I'm on Twitter every day. I've been for years. I think you have more followers than I, and you've probably been on Twitter for fewer years than I do. I'm jealous. I'm kidding. Because as you and I know, it's all relative. It's the quality of your audience. And hey, you wrote a book that builds your following. Maybe I'll pick up a few more followers once my book's out.
Yeah.
but seriously, I notice you do the text only tweets quite a bit, which I don't do is much as you and some of the others. And I agree with you. Those seem to be, I know they're authentic. I know they often take more time than just sharing links or tweeting out, I write a ton of articles, do a ton of videos, podcasts like this. I'll tweet those. But I'll admit, I don't take the time more than, once every few days to just tweet a thought, if you will, random. You do. And I think Nicole does, and there's others.
Yep. Kind of others. Yeah.
The motivation behind that, and I mean, we've already alluded to it, and the results. What can you share with?
Yeah.
If you hear my question, I was kind of, not
No,
exactly
yeah,
a direct question.
Yeah, no, I hear. I'm trying to think of like when I started like tweeting actively. I think
Like
it was
thoughts, just random thoughts.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
said
It
something
was just
today.
like,
Can I quote? I hope I
yeah,
can. You put it on
yeah,
Twitter. Something
yeah. I
about
don't care. Yeah.
Panera coffee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm
don't
drinking it right now. Panera coffee. It's my first time in a while having it.
don't let anybody ever tell you. They can say a lot of things about me, but I pay attention.
Yeah.
I do
No,
my
yeah.
homework, and I saw that
I
tweet,
put,
and that's
yeah,
exactly what I mean. You just said something like, I don't know, the quality of Panera coffee.
actually
So
good. I never knew.
yeah,
Yeah. It's something like
so
that. Yeah.
I don't do
Yeah.
that
And like,
often. So what's your motivation, and is it
yeah,
strategic or just that's how I feel and I'm going to put it out there, or
that. Yeah.
or is there a part of you that says this will probably get like 20 likes too? Do you know what I mean?
No,
What?
yeah. I don't do it for any, I do it for me. So I think that's what, I realized when I started getting more active. I forget like when it was, but I started like at like 1,000 followers just from having Twitter. I used it for like not often. I used it probably like once every other month. And I used it for like tweeting about pop culture and like whatever. And I gained 1,000 followers because like RuPaul retweeted me once, and then like someone
That's
else
big
retweeted
time.
me. So it was like some other. It was just like silly little gifs that I made, and then I got 1,000 followers from that. But then as I came back online, I kind of just started sharing whatever I was thinking, what was going on, what I was doing at work, like, things about Panera coffee and stuff like that. And I just realized that like writing for myself was something that I really enjoyed, and just sharing my thoughts and starting conversations, whether it was about marketing or pop culture or coffee, was always super fun and just like exciting. So it's never really for a strategic point. And I think that's like why I just like saw the growth. Is just like I didn't do it for the growth. I kind of just wanted to share ideas. And what resonated. Like, sometimes you got like 500 likes on things just because it really hit home for someone else. And I forget what the tweet was, but that was probably like my biggest one, and I don't remember what it is now.
You've had some
But
great
like,
ones.
yeah,
They thanks to the algorithm, and number one, I'm always looking for you.
yeah,
You're usually at the top of my feed,
yeah,
and I follow 5,000 people
yeah,
or so. There is a lesson there though for marketers and for business, and that's what I'm kind of hinting around. That the naysayers and the second guessers, I'm trying to think of other words, skeptics with regard to social media and Twitter, and because I've heard it for years. I've been preaching social media. I started my blog in 04, and that social media, and again, jumped on Twitter very early on. But so many people don't think it in business, think it's worth the time, and don't get it. I'll be frank. But it's examples like what we're talking about right now. If you just, and I hate to say, do something personal for strategic reasons, but we can be honest and say to businesses, hey, you don't really have to have a lot of, hard and fast strategy. There should be some, but in some cases, let your employees just share yourself about the company. And number one, it's good for you. It's cathartic. It's, there's some freedom involved, but strategically from a business point of view, it very well could benefit the business. Correct. And I love seeing, to me, that's a big business lesson that companies overlook.
Yeah. And I think like, back at Webflow, like I think we have a really good community of employees that are on Twitter actually, and talk about Webflow whenever we have like a big announcement and things like that. And it just kind of builds that energy on social that, not a lot of companies have. Just because our team happens to be on Twitter. It's not like something you can like force at a company, but it's just like exciting to like enable people to share on their own socials.
Yeah.
There's a big trend with like employee advocacy out there.
Yes.
So that's definitely, I've seen the impact of that at Drift. I've seen the impact of that at Webflow. So it's definitely like a really exciting thing that people can start leaning into and thinking about.
You're the living, breathing example of that, Pat. Just a simple tweet, less than 100 characters, never mind whatever, 280 characters, words only, extemporaneous, can get, and again, not that's the reason you do it, but I'm saying to brands and business, anyone who's listening, watching, just unleash a few Pat Timmonses on the world, if you will, on your social team, and you are probably going to see increased engagement, and increased engagement leads to more business in the long run, because people get to know you, they like you, they respect you, they buy your products and services. I know I'm simplifying it, but I really think literally that one simple tweet you put out today probably gets more attention than a lot of the tweets, and I'll admit, than I put out there when I just am sharing links. There's a reason to share links too. You want to share good articles and video and links to podcasts, etc. But probably when we share extemporaneously our feelings, our thoughts, our musings, people can relate and we connect. Do you agree? I see you nodding your head.
I totally agree. And I think it makes it easier to talk to people offline too. Like when people can see your personality on Twitter, like, whenever I'm about to meet someone, I actually look at their Twitter first just to see what they post and what they talk about. And you get a sense of like who they are, what they care about, their voice, like if they have a family, if they don't, if they're single, if they're married, things like that. You learn a little bit about them before you can like jump on a call, and it builds that kind of like initial trust and warmth. Like I think a lot of people talk about how they hire people just from Twitter now.
Wow, that's
and they
awesome.
find jobs via Twitter, and things like that. So, investors probably find people that are building new companies just on Twitter. And it's about, putting those like human first things on the internet and sharing that out there. So, yeah.
Listen, I'm going to try to repeat that. It's about putting humans first thing out there on the internet, and whatever the last few words were, but that's a profound statement. And I mean that because it can be as simple as that. And it's really saying almost to some degree that some businesses need to unlearn some of perhaps what they were taught in terms of this is how you behave in the business world. And it's more like just be yourself. And that could, coupled with your knowledge and your expertise and your actions and the products and services you represent, that could be the magic, the secret sauce to success. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And like brands, one that came to mind, like Shopify, that tweet like your friend are going to build that trust. Saad on their social team does like a great job of just, putting out content that is like funny, like really relevant, that, anybody would relate to, just because they have such a broad, user base, like from sellers to buyers.
Yeah.
They talk like your friend on Twitter. Like you don't need to have, very businessy posts. You can have, I watched RuPaul last night, it was funny, or something like that, and like stuff like that. And just be really human about the way they post.
There's been many takeaways during this conversation, Pat, but I think that's one of the biggest. And on what the common thread is, and coincidentally, or yeah, coincidentally, it ties right back to your book, or no surprise, it ties right back to your book. Be empathetic, be conversational, be human,
Yeah.
and that can lead to great success. And I would say, professionally, but what could be better as a human being, right? Personally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything I've overlooked in asking you questions that you want to talk about? Anything, period.
Look at my notes. Oh yeah. Well, you asked like in the email before this, you kind of said, oh, if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I want to add is just like have fun with your marketing. Just like don't take it seriously, unless you're literally saving lives with your marketing. Usually, not a lot of companies that are posting on social are. So just like have fun, but also be meaningful. Like you don't have to sacrifice comedy for being meaningful. So I think like just having fun is super important. Not on just social, like on, out of home content, out of emails, like anything. I think you just have to have fun.
I agree totally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that. I'm in my classes, I teach 4 this semester in marketing, and I am encouraging them, asking them to watch the Super Bowl ads, because
Yeah.
it's, not just the 2 best football teams, but it's the Super Bowl of advertising. And most of them will be having fun in those ads. Most of them will be
Oh
very
yeah.
entertaining and
Yep.
not taking themselves too seriously. And I wish, and I think I wish it is tide is starting to turn, that marketers, businesses are starting to have more fun than they used to.
Oh
And
yeah.
my wish would be those who aren't yet having fun. I wish that they all have fun, because we also want to enjoy what we do for a living. And again, someone who's worked almost 40 years in this business, I've tried to, make the most of every minute of it and have fun. But definitely the later years, I've had more fun than the early years. So I think we're heading in the right direction. That arrow behind you that points upwards, I think we're heading
That's
upwards
yeah. We're going up. Yeah.
yes, in a positive direction. Pat, how can people find you, connect with you? And frankly, my plug on your behalf: buy your book, Feel Something.
Yeah.
How can they connect with you and buy that book?
Yeah. So Twitter is probably the best place. My DMs are open. So anytime people want to just chat about marketing or empathy or life, my Twitter is Pat Timmons _. And then my website, where you can learn more about the book and learn more about like my experience, and where I post like sometimes a newsletter. It's not very often, but whenever I have time, it's feelsomething.co. So
Feelsomething.co.
yep.
In
Yes.
Pat Timmons _, is that what I heard? Or
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
on
For
Twitter.
Twitter. Yep.
And Pat, if you're not following him, I would follow, folks. Not even a question. I have read the book right here, Feel Something. It's an awesome book, and it's a relatively quick read. Lots of insight and case studies and interviews. You did a lot of research. I was very impressed. I mean, that seemed like
Yeah.
it
It was
must have been a
fun.
lot of work.
Yeah. It was fun. It was a lot of conversations like this, like I said. So it was fun.
It's a great
Yeah.
book. You're a great conversationalist, a great guest, Pat. And
Thank
we've
you.
been planning this for a few months now. And I'm glad we stuck with our pledge, if you will, informal, to
Yeah.
make this happen, because we've now made it happen. It's being recorded. I'll be sharing it probably the week of February 7th. This is February 4th on Friday. Let me thank you, Pat, and applaud you for all your achievements and all the time you've given me today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Bob, for having me. And, congratulations on 150. I don't know who's next, but it has to be a big one, I'm sure. So I'm excited for you. Yeah.
I
It's
haven't
awesome.
thought that far ahead. Geez, if we waited
Yeah.
just a little longer, you might have been
I know.
150. Well, you're
Yeah. That's for someone cool.
149th, so 150 will have would be a tough act to follow. Because this
Thank
has
you.
been a great conversation, and I can't wait to
Yeah.
release this to everybody so they can enjoy this conversation like I have. Thank you, Pat Timmons. I really, really appreciate it. This has been Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. I'm Bob Cargill. That's Pat Timmons, and he has been such an awesome guest. I hope you have enjoyed listening to this show, watching the show as much as I've enjoyed my conversation with Pat. Thank you, Pat, again. Go out, folks, and buy his book, Feel Something. If you haven't yet, follow Patrick Timmons, and he's a great guy, and he's been a great guest. I'm so glad to have had this conversation with you, Pat. Thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening, and I'll be talking to you about marketing again sometime soon. Bye for now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.